Today's class I'm calling a Sociology of Police Violence. And what I want to say a couple things about this. This is 75 minutes, or now it's like 70 minutes. And we get sociology of police, I could take an entire semester or an entire academic year and talk about the issue of police and policing and so on. Moreover, I'm not an expert on policing, okay? That said, I've been talking about policing in race and policing in culture and policing around the world for the past 35 years. And so if we go to this next slide, I'll show you. This is just, for example, a PowerPoint that I used to have. I mean, it was like 15, I pulled this from like 15 years ago of a class that I did all about drugs and race and inequality, and really deconstructing the war on drugs and the degree to which the war on drugs and policing and the judicial system and so on is showing with data, very thoughtfully, we're showing with data the ways in which it's really an unfair playing field in this country in which poor people, in particular, including poor white people, and people of color are really coming up short, to say the least. So I've been talking about this for a long, long time, and there's a lot to say, because if it's like what I was saying to Stephen the other day. Remember Stephen, who was here? It's like when we were asking about, well, what do you know about the United States and what the United States has done around the world? And Stephen, who was awesome, by the way, didn't know, and you wouldn't be expected to know, right? Like, because you can't know everything, but you can learn it, and when you learn it, it shifts a little bit how you see some things, right? Because my mind shifts when I learn things that my mind has to shift, it has to change, and it does, and I want it to, because I want to be smart, I don't want to be dumb, right? Okay, next one. So just something very simple like this, right? Like it's just marijuana arrests, right? Black people, white people, Hispanic people, Asian people, all basically use marijuana at the same rates, and basically sell marijuana at the same rates. There are a lot of people in here who have trafficked marijuana. I have trafficked marijuana, right? So like, for example, you buy a bag of weed and you split it up into 2 bags and you sell one to your friend. That's sales. That's marijuana sales, right? So when I'm 15 years old or 16 years old, and I got a $30 bag of Colombian gold, and I split it with my buddy, then that's trafficking, right? So everybody does it at the same rates, and so, but look at the arrest rate between black people and white people. It's like, it's everywhere you turn. All I'm going to say is this: as fair and absolutely fair as I want to be, I want to get to the truth, and everywhere I go to see whatever the truth is, I just see these kinds of things. So I've spent lots of time talking about this. The next one. But here's something that I want to say that's also really important, something that is very disturbing to me, and something that I see as a very troubling window into the future. So imagine the United States was the whole country, the land was divided up in the same way as wealth in the U.S., right? The richest 1% of Americans would own this much of the United States. That's how rich they are. They would own that much. So it's not, the next 9% would own this much. And that means the richest 10% of Americans would own this much of the United States, okay? Are we following that? We got it? You see like the symbolism here? Makes sense? Okay, and then the next 30% would own this much. So the richest 40% of Americans would own everything above kind of north central Texas. The richest 40% of all Americans. Then the next 40% would own this much right here. And the poorest 20% of Americans would own that little spot right there. And like, we are a very, very unequal society. Very unequal, just incredibly unequal. But let me show you something else that is just immensely disturbing. It ought to be disturbing to everybody because it bodes very negatively for where we're going and what's going to happen. If you go to the next slide. So we've generated a lot of wealth in the United States. Lots and lots of wealth. So much. The history of the world has never seen anything like the expansion of the global economy in the past 30 years. We've never seen anything like it. It's just not even. It's not there. Nothing. Okay? And of these trillions of dollars of new income that we've added, because we're just expanding out. So it's new income, right? We're growing and growing and growing. About what percentage of all that, there's trillions of dollars, we'll just go since the year 2000, about what percentage has gone to the wealthiest 1% of Americans? The richest 1%. And we're just going to talk about the new income here in the United States. So I talked about the world economy, but right now we're talking the trillions of dollars of new income in the United States. You haven't introduced yourselves yet, but wait, why don't you introduce yourselves? Why don't we take this moment? Connor, we'll start with you.
My name is Connor McNally. I'm from Oceanside, New York. I'm a criminology major.
Dude, okay. What do you think is the answer? About what percentage of these trillions of dollars of new wealth that's been generated in the U.S. in the past 2 decades has gone to the richest 1%?
I'd say probably over 85.
85? Jesse. Oh, wait, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jesse. I'm a criminology major, and I'm from Broward County, Florida.
Okay. What would you say?
I probably agree with him.
Yeah?
Hi, I'm Gianna. I'm from Hermitage, PA, and at first I was going to say about like 75, so yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. So the answer is between like 75 and 80. Okay? So think about this. The past 20 years, so basically your lives, we've generated so much new income, and that income is going, the majority of it, 75 to 80%, is going to the richest 1%. Like, what happened? Who's running this show? If you're wondering why people voted for Donald Trump, by the way, because Donald Trump is a populist. Donald Trump is pointing toward these kinds of problems, not this problem per se, but the problems that arise out of this sort of thing. And as a populist politician, people go toward who they think can possibly solve the problems that arise from this kind of thing. But when you have so much inequality, what happens? What happens? You have unrest, right? You have unrest. People are you don't sit well with this sort of thing, okay? And so therefore, what we've seen is a response. And we've seen the rise of paramilitary policing, meaning the police have to act like soldiers in order to contain people who are going to step up in some kind of unrest. And it's not just, the people in urban areas, it's people on January 6th of last year. It's the unrest, it's the rioting, it's the attempted whatever it is. And so we create this paramilitary policing. Look at these police. This is really, really troubling. So I've been talking about this for 35 years. I've been talking about where we're at right now with these divisions and the police and the rise and people, the revolution, because the wealthy and the rich are going to walk away. And in this sense, the police then represent instruments of the state, because the state is responsible for keeping peace, holding things together, and ultimately responsible for the powers that be to be able to hold down the fort. Because that's what happens. That's the nature of things. So as we're talking today, I want you to really keep that in mind, okay? So now, I want you to keep something else in mind as we move forward. I'm going to go back and forth. So I've already told you that I can really critique the police. I can really talk. I can spend the rest of the semester talking about racism, discrimination, inequality, unfairness in our entire judicial system, criminal justice system, top to bottom, from judges to police to prosecutors to defense attorneys, wherever you want to go, prisons. I can go there really easily. But I'm going to take and I'm going to do a little bit of that. But I have been a little bit unsettled by the ways in which the police have been critiqued, by the ways in which people have lumped all the police together into one group and just created this vision. And I say people, lots of people. I'm talking about people who never ever thought about the police, but suddenly over the past couple of years, the police are like public enemy number one. Watching how this narrative has grown and emerged and doesn't really exactly fit what's going on. And if it doesn't fit what's going on, then you can't really address and think about the problem. You don't just make statements, right? All police are racist, or all this, or all that. No, you don't do that. Like, that doesn't help anybody. So I'm gonna try to walk us through some things, and I want to talk a little bit about what would be this police violence and what we're looking at. Are we good? Hey, the attendance sheets are good? Okay, man. All right, so here we go. So what's gonna happen with you all is, let me introduce you a little bit. So Gianna's father's a police officer, okay? Jesse wants to be a police officer, and Connor has had some less than positive, can I say it that way? Less than positive experiences with the police. And so I thought, hey, this is perfect, right? The three of you make perfect people up here to first off, check me, ask questions, I'll ask you questions, we'll come back, because I really want to be fair. I want to be fair to you. I have friends, I have former students, I have a long list of former students that have just really horrible stories and horrible experiences regarding the police. My God, police. I have seen things. The one time I almost got arrested was because the police, where I lived in New Jersey, I lived in New Brunswick, in a part of New Brunswick where I was one of like two white guys, let's just say that. And I looked out my window and the police were towing away my neighbor's car because he was parked in front of his own driveway. And he was out there, he was this African guy, and he was out there trying to get them to just listen to him. It was his driveway. And they were just being dicks. And I was in nothing but, I think I had my underwear on, or I had these like shorts. I didn't have a shirt on, I didn't have pants. I lost my mind. I ran downstairs, and I was just in this cop's face like, you effing racist pigs, like da-da-da-da-da, like, just, it's his effing driveway. I'm just going at this guy. And in New Brunswick, if you know anything about New Brunswick, you don't do that with the police, right? But I did. I lost my mind. And finally, this cop had had enough. And he just comes up to me, and he just like starts poking my chest. And I won't do it with anybody. With two fingers, man, he's just like, boom, pushing me backwards. And he's like, listen, like, you want to get arrested, MFer? You want to get arrested? One more word out of your mouth, you're going down. And I look down, and I'm in my I don't have shoes on. I don't have a shirt on. I'm like, oh, this isn't going to go very well, right? So I just finally but the tow truck was already there. So I somehow just brought myself back to reality. But I've seen stuff. And so I want to be fair. I want to be fair to that narrative, which is really important. But I also have had the opportunity, unlike many people, most people, nearly all people probably, who have a really harsh critique of the police, I have had many conversations with police. And I've had the opportunity and the privilege to sit down with police and talk about what goes on, ride-alongs, the whole thing, to see like what's really happening here. Because as a sociologist, I really want to know. I don't want to be dumb. I want to be thoughtful, and I want to be smart. I'm most often dumb. I keep thinking I'm going to like cross over that line where I'm never dumb, but nonetheless, right? So I want to be thoughtful. So I want to be fair to people like you who want to go into police, and I want to be fair to your father, right? I want to be fair all the way around. But I don't want to forget Connor, and I don't want to forget Gianna's father. Like, it's all true. It's all true. It's just a matter of seeing it with great clarity. Okay, is that cool? So I want to ask the three of you, first off, just, and you may not have anything. Do you have anything that you would say as we get ready to launch? Anything I've said at this point?
Well, first things first, I love police officers. I want to be a cop, like
Okay.
a FBI agent. That's why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I've had negative encounters with individuals who are in the
Okay.
police department.
Yep.
So I don't really believe the whole narrative that that all cops are bad.
Yep. Okay, cool.
But there has been a few things.
Yep. Okay, cool. So what I want you to do is keep us in that balance, right? Yep. Jesse or Gianna, do you have anything that you would just throw out there before we get going?
Kind of going off of what Connor said, I'm just thinking about like, I definitely agree. I think that in anything, even like teachers, any job, any profession, there's going to be people that are better than others. There's going to be people that are all right. There's going to be people that don't follow the rules. And there's going to be issues all around. I don't think that it's always going to be a perfect
No,
situation.
it's not. It's just the consequences of imperfection. For police and the justice system, the consequences can really destroy somebody's life. And what we see is there's certain populations of people who are much more likely to have their lives destroyed than other populations of people. And so in that sense, yes. So once again, like that's true. And yet, like, look, what if I'm like a jerk to you? What's at most? You're going to get a B instead of the A that you think you deserve. And some of you will think I'm a jerk. At the end of the semester, you're going to get the grade you want, and you didn't get the A, you got an A minus or a B plus, and like Sam Richards is the whatever, a-hole. But that doesn't matter. That kind of thing doesn't matter. But if I'm a police officer, say, I have the power to really destroy you. And when I do that, or when the system does, and we don't have any way to contain that system, then it has dire consequences for people, as the two of you will find out, right? So I hear you. I'm with you. Yep. Okay, so let's go with, first off, there's about 900,000 sworn law enforcement officers in the United States, okay? So when we say the police, what we're talking is 900,000 people. So this goes with what Gianna said, goes with what Connor said. This is like, dude, you have 900,000 people. Fill up Beaver Stadium 9 times. Nine times. That's a lot of people. There's a lot of jerks who are going to be there, right? I mean, you understand, 900,000. So then the question is like, so who are these 900,000 people? And I'm going to say, well, I can't, this isn't systematic. I'm pulling this out of my observation in my life up till now, right? And my observation and understanding of police. So I will be really curious about what any of you think about this. But one are just social workers. Please, I mean, my experience of police, mind you, this isn't what I study, but I have had so many conversations with police officers, right? It's like social workers, man, it's people. What do social workers do? They want to help people, right? They want to step in. Wait, hey, why do you want to be a cop?
Personally, ever since I was a child, I just wanted to be one. Like, I literally walked up to one and I was like, I want to be just like you when I was little. But like, I think with the whole social worker thing, it's like, I mean, police officers put their life on the line to help people, no matter who they are, and they're willing to give up their own lives for someone else.
Uh-huh.
And
But
that's why I want to,
That's why you want to do it.
like, I'm willing to put my life on a line for someone that really needs help.
So it's the social worker thing, right? You want to help people.
Yeah.
And not only do you want to help people, you're willing to put yourself on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Are you into guns, or are you just going to tolerate guns?
I'm into them. I've only gone to the range once, but I'm full in support for them.
Okay. So, yeah, where'd you say you're from? Florida?
I'm from South Florida, so Fort Lauderdale,
Yeah, okay.
Miami area.
So that's not like as much of a gun culture as in the
Well,
north.
it is,
Yeah.
but not in the way you think.
Yeah, oh, all right. Okay, all right. So that idea, the social worker idea, but it holds true for you, right? Why is your father a police officer?
So he was actually a Marine for a few years, and then he came back, and he was a police officer in a different county, and then eventually came to our county because it was like a little bit of a better lifestyle for what he wanted. And he has always been the kind to want to risk his life to save somebody else. He wants to help people. He's been into guns. He also does another thing called CERT, which is basically like SWAT team for our area. And so and he's in charge of that. And so when there's more dangerous situations that they won't always call just the police officers to, they actually call the CERT team out. And so he'll do more things like that involves like shootouts or somebody potentially like trying to shoot themselves. Like, so he's just always been one to like, I feel like he almost likes the thrill that he wants to risk his life to save others.
Okay, yeah, so there's something about that. So like the social worker thing though, that fits also, right? Connor, how about you?
I mean, it was kind of like the same. I've always wanted to be a cop, and then through my negative experiences, I kind of developed, my mom is Caribbean black, so she's very if and or but about it. There's no debating with her, so after those experiences and after I told her I want to be a cop, I got stuff thrown at me. She was like, "You're kind of crazy for that. You can do so much other things. Why would you want to do that?" And relatively, I said to her, it's because the same thing as they said. I wanted to help people that needed help, people that don't have the opportunities that I'm given now, that may be in a almost worse part in their life in the future, where I could help them with what I'm getting from here now.
Okay, but in addition, you have another piece of you that wants to actually change policing, right? So it's like, I want to help people, but I also want to reform it.
Yeah.
I've had experiences, and I want to do something, right? Whereas for the two of you, that's not primary, right? In the same kind of way. Okay, all right. Well, so listen, you got the social worker mentality. It's the same with the military, by the way. I don't know how much time everyone knows some people in the military. I've actually, just in my life, have had many opportunities to sit down with many, many, many soldiers, and not only in the United States, but from around the world. And it's a very similar thing. People want to protect others. It's a personality characteristic that really, it's like you'll know it when you have a child and you want to protect your child, but you just extend that out to lots of other people. So it's very similar, right? And then you got the police, they're just workers. The police department was in Fort Lauderdale, let's say, or whatever, who knows. They were hiring, and you're just like, I just applied. Okay, got it. So then you did. It's a job, right? And then you just kind of figure it out along the way. And then there are the power-hungry people. They're the ones who just feel like, they just want to, whatever. I don't know, maybe they're men with really, who are insecure about the size of their sexual organs, or who knows what, or women who are insecure about being a woman, or I don't know, or people who got their lunch stolen in high school. Like, I have no idea. But the idea is that, you just take that out on other people, and you wear the badge, and you got the gun, and you just want to be that jerk, right? And so, unfortunately, what happens is, it doesn't take, you see, Connor said it really well. So it's like, every cop you've experienced isn't like that, but the ones that, when you do experience some, they then taint the entire picture, right? Like, if you take one sociology class, and the sociology professor is, a jerk, then you're going to just attribute that to sociology. That's just what you do. That's what we do. That's how it operates, right? So, okay. But the question is, how many are in the different categories? So if you're, what would you say, man? What percentage of cops are power-hungry jerks?
I mean, for me, from my experience, I'm also a firefighter back home, so I work very closely with the police in my county and just in Long Island in general. So majority of the time, those kinds of cops, I really see them as social workers with guns, but they don't really rely on their guns unless they have to.
Yep.
There is a few that are power hungry, but there's not really the ones that are just, it's my job, I just come here 9 to 5 to get my check. It's either I see people that are like the three of us that know what they want to do, and how they want to help society, or there's just a very few that are jerks.
Yeah, got you. Yeah, yeah. I was surprised about the middle one, but I just have met more and more of those, right? Who they came out of the military, they didn't know what else to do, and there's well, I just applied, right? Okay. What would you say? What do you think your dad would say about this? What percentage are jerks?
I feel like,
Like, how often do you hear that?
yeah, I don't think I really hear that often, but like just taking it from my own experience, like especially in our area, we have those cops that everybody knows because they're known for pulling like every person over. Like we have one cop that's known for pulling everybody home from school, and like they're known for being like a jerk, if you want to say that, like that you never get away with the ticket. And then even like from my own experience, I've been pulled over in our area, and I've almost like received some of that attitude, and then I say who I am, like that my dad's a police officer, and the whole demeanor changes. So I think definitely the power can sometimes come in.
Which is really troubling, right? Like, I find it really troubling that cops, like that you would not be treated fairly as I would just because your father's a cop, right? But then I think, well, yeah, but I guess if you were the daughter of my colleague in sociology, I would just look at you differently, you know what I mean? Because, oh, you're my friend's daughter. So, like, okay. So I guess that's kind of how life is, you know what I mean? But it's a little bit unsettling. You know, don't do that when you're a cop. Treat everyone equally, man. Don't let, like, family members of cops off. Or, like, people put this, like, I support the so-and-so police in their car window. Like that, I would give you a ticket just for sticking that in your effing window, man. I'd double the ticket for that. I find that stuff so annoying. You know what I mean? That's the same as you like handing your quiz in to me and giving me like a couple dollars or something. You know what I mean? Or like a little sticker that says, I love Sam Richards or whatever. I don't know. It's like, the hell? All right. Let me look at a couple more things. All right. So one thing to keep in mind as we're going to talk about the police, because I'm going to talk about police being jerks in a second, right? Because this is the anti-police movement that's out there, right? There's a lot of attacks on law enforcement, right? I mean, really, it's pretty, and you know, a lot of these, the 60,000 officers, 90,000 officers, right? So 60,000 assaults. They're not all assaults. You know what I mean? Like if I put my hand, if I'm like those cops that I was arguing with who were ticketing my neighbor, if I had, when he was poking me, if I would have just pushed his hand away, that would have been assault on a police officer. I'm like, come on, man. Stop with this nonsense, right? So some of that is not really assaults. And in all fairness, it isn't. But you know, 30% of the officers assaulted were considered injured, and police officers don't come home to their families. But you know, 46, I mean, I'm not to make light of it, but people, we talk about how it's such a dangerous job, but 46 out of 900,000 people, in fairness, so I get, like nothing, I'm again, this is me being fair, it is more dangerous to be a roofer in the United States than to be a police officer, right? But nobody talks about roofing as a dangerous job. At the same time, nobody who's on a roof falls off the roof and dies because someone pushes them off the room. They're not feloniously assaulted, right? And unlike police, because this isn't all the police that die. Most police who die, they in the United States die because they died on the job of a heart attack or something like that, or a traffic accident or something, right? These are felonious assaults. These are when somebody deliberately killed them. So, but this is, you know, police want to come home, right? Your father, every night, he wants to come home to you and your mom. Do you have siblings?
I have 7 siblings.
Dude, okay. So look, think about the tragedy of that, right? Think about the tragedy of something happening to her father with 8 children. Like, that is just, you know, come on, man. And you want, when the two of you become police, you want to go home, right? I mean, clearly. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Oh, wait, I can't read it. Can you read it to me? Hey, so somebody on the stream is asking about if there's so much violence, assaults on police with traffic stops. Why don't we have a special traffic? Like, your dad's part of that one team, and the two of you will be part of some special team probably. Why don't we have special traffic police that are really just responsible for stopping people? And one of the things that's coming out of the current reform of police right now, is to do less traffic stops. Traffic stops are really, really dangerous, And do you know how dangerous it is? Like when a police officer comes up to your car, and they pull you over and they come up to your car, it's common for police officers to touch the back corner of your car with their finger, so that if something happens and you get away, their fingerprint is on your car. And imagine every time you pull a car over that you do that. Like that's just part of you. I don't walk into this room and think, oh, I gotta make sure that as I'm walking in the room I touch something so that everybody knows, because I might die. Like, this is a thing. So people are saying in response to the stream that let's just do less traffic stops. Like, just stop, and stop doing that. Like, we don't really need to do it. So that is one response. Okay, so here we go. What did I say? Cops who are assholes. Yeah, I said it. Yeah, let's just say it. Cops who are assholes. So first, so here's one thing, right? The reason this matters, and I want to go back to something, right? Those of you who are critical, highly critical of law enforcement and the police and policing, it doesn't help anybody, and it doesn't help your cause, the cause, which is my cause. I've been talking about it for 35 years, remember that. It doesn't help anything to make sweeping generalizations and sweeping statements, okay? It's just like they're all assholes, or all cops are racist, or whatever it is. What matters is for us to be thoughtful about how it is that we are talking about these things, okay? And so, cops are assholes. Yeah, there are cops who are they're cops who are jerks, man. And maybe your dad, right? Like, you're not going to think so. Like, I don't know your dad, but you don't know, right? You've never followed him out. I mean, maybe, has he ever been charged with negligence or violence, or, whatever? Has he been ever?
Actually, no. He's normally, he's more one of the chill cops. Like, my friends will always, friends, like, people that know me, they'd always, especially when a lot of stuff was going on, they'd say, like, bad stuff about cops, and then they'd text me and they'd be like, "Oh, but your dad's cool. Like, your dad's nice.
Yeah,
I like your dad."
But we don't necessarily know that, right?
Yeah.
We don't know that, right? Because everybody thinks they're cool. Like, I'm going to be the guy who thinks like, "Oh no, but I'm a good professor." It's like everyone thinks that, right? And my closest friends think like, "Oh no, but you're a nice guy. You're the good professor." Like, we all think that, but we don't know that. But some people are jerks. Some people are assholes, and they are. And the problem with policing is that, first off, the problem with the critique of police is when you just make the sweeping statement, we don't get anywhere, right? It doesn't help anybody. It just divides us. And it stops us from doing the kinds of things that we really need to do. But the jerk cops are a problem for all cops, right? Number one. It's a problem for everybody. Number one, because it gets in the way of just everybody doing their job. It's like me, if I'm working, if I have a bunch of TAs who work with me, and a couple of my TAs are jerks, I got to deal with that. So, everybody deals with it. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to have that. You just say, stop, don't be a jerk, right? Be nice. But some cops are power hungry, and sometimes you can't stop it. And they want to stop it, and they want to fire them, and they want to get rid of them. And I've been with cops who are just talking about their other cops who I knew, and I'm like, "Oh, that guy must be a real, fuck." And the cops are like, "Yeah, man, he just makes life a living hell for us because that guy does X, Y, and Z, and then the rest of us pay for it," right? And you would be amazed, you'd be surprised at the number of conversations like that I've had about the cops who are assholes and the people who don't want that to happen, right? Not to say that this is all, the whole system is troubled at some level, but you got it, right? So you might say, or some people, there are people who are more activist-oriented about the police who would say, yeah, but I don't believe that. Here, let me just say to you guys, right? I don't believe that. I think most cops are a-holes or whatever. And then to which I would say, how many police have you talked to? How many entire police departments have you had conversations with? How many times have you sat down to really explore this? What do you really know? Where do you see police? What police are you talking about? The ones in their body armor, right, that show up? Or police that are everyday police officers that are really working? Like, which police are you talking about? When you say, no, but all cops, and you might say, well, but the police that I see. And I'm like, well, where do you see them? Under what situations do you see them? Under what conditions? How does this operate? What's going on? Where is it? What's happening? Because in some situation, I have seen cops being like the most troubled, just like, oh man, just problematic, right? And yet I've seen, okay, hang on, I'm going to come back to that. Do you have anything that you would say to any of those, to what I just said there? About, like, right now, bro, I'm going to ask you. I'm challenging, actually, that, like, there are a lot of people, and people watching the stream or whatever, who, first off, are just going to think that I'm just an apologist for the police, right? And I'm not being fair, and I should be more critical of the police. And I'm saying, how do you, but whoever it is, that for which I'm being an apologist, whoever's critiquing it, how much do you, what have you done? Like, who have you talked to? What have you seen? Do you have any thought on that? Just to anything that comes to mind?
Well, if I'm supposed to be the guy that is saying the police are bad, I have the same mentality as you, because I've had negative experience with police officers, and I've seen bad things and some really bad things that police have done. But I also, when I'm back home, I'm an active duty Class A firefighter, so anywhere there's a fire truck, there's going to be a cop car.
Yep.
I know mainly all the cops in my town. There's a few that are problematic, but not problematic where it's, what we consider to be a bigger social issue, like systemic racism or discrimination.
Yep.
More like kind of dumb, like you don't know how they got their job.
Yeah, got
More of like little things like, oh, you didn't put your car in park. I'm not kidding, that's a real one. One of them didn't put their car in park and just got out.
Yeah.
It wasn't nice, but things like that. Now, my own experience, I've been pulled over, and the little thumb thing is what actually told me, oh, shit, I'm screwed. Because I actually knew about that, and I saw him put his whole hand on my windshield, and I was like, oh, what did I do this time? It wasn't me. Trust me, it wasn't me. But I was 17 at the time, and I just got my license literally 2 months prior, and I was in the car with two of my friends, Deshaun and Giovanni. Both were black too. And the cop, he's walking around, and he already has his hand on the gun.
Yeah.
And the little, I guess the catch for the holster, he already flicked that off. And his partner was walking around the other way, and I'm like, oh God, what did I do? It's like, maybe I didn't stop at a stop sign, my bad. But it eventually got to the point where they were yelling orders like, driver, put your hands outside of the vehicle. Driver, do this. Driver, do that. Yeah, they thought I carjacked somebody. I didn't. But, I mean, I can understand, like, even, like, people like Gianna's father, where everybody loves him. I kind of understand, like, maybe those police weren't racist. Maybe they weren't problematic like that. What the information they had, I probably would have assumed the same thing. A bunch of kids in a car matching the description of a jacked car. So,
and then you gotta say, but wait, what was the real description of the jacked car? Was it really like your car? Was it really different? This is where cops have to be held to accountability, because afterwards they can always say, oh, Yeah, but I thought, there was a carjacking. It was kind of
Yeah.
looked like you. Like, come on, man. Seriously, was it, or were we just like?
They did not have the full report
Okay.
until my mom had to come randomly somewhere in Long Beach, which is a town away from my town, to
yep.
come, act like Mama Bear for a second,
Yep. Yep.
which is quite terrifying.
So exactly, and then you go, and they're already one step closer to a problem encounter, a dangerous encounter, when they already have they already have their hand right here, right? Which is, dude, this isn't going to happen with you, right? You're not going to get pulled over ever, because it's highly unlikely. Because we thought you carjacked a car, and it's like, it's this young white woman with blondish light brown hair, and you're going to be in that really dangerous situation like this. It's not going to happen. And what we don't see and what we need to see are situations like what Connor is saying here, to say like what's different about him and the two other occupants in his car that changed that situation. And that's why right now we're having these conversations. And this, by the way, is critical race theory right here. This is what we're doing here. We're having that conversation because police need to be held accountable for this kind of thing. And so okay, how is that and why is that? Jesse, remember that. Do you have anything that you would add at all? You don't have to. But
Well, I was just gonna say I've had my fair share of getting pulled over. I think at some point, when pulling people over where it makes no sense, but also letting people off, who should not have been let off, in my personal experience,
Yeah.
I got pulled over by a state trooper in Altoona, going 85 and a 50. So he was like, technically, I'm supposed to charge you with reckless driving, speeding, and endangerment, and take your license away. But he was like, but I'll just give you failure to obey a traffic device.
okay.
And I was like, what? How did I get out of that? But even I want to be a police officer, but I have 4 tickets
Yeah.
that are on my record.
Yeah.
And then I'm worried that
Yeah.
that'll affect my what's it called? My eligibility
Yeah,
to be a
for
police
sure.
officer.
And it should.
But I mean,
No, it should, because it's really poor judgment on your part.
but I was a teenager. It was back in the day.
Okay, all right.
But I mean, I've seen in South Florida, there's a big illegal street racing.
Yeah.
And I've been part of it. Not me, my friends.
Yeah.
And I've seen people get.
Dude, you are a common criminal, actually. You know what I mean? Right? Am I right, bro?
I'm a firefighter, and I have 50 tickets. They've literally pulled me over with my emergency lights on and everything.
Really?
How do you have 4 tickets with that? What?
Yeah.
Damn.
Where are you from again?
Oh, South Florida.
All
Dude,
right,
it's
I'm
South
gonna move
Florida,
out of New
man.
York.
Okay. So listen. Let's go to. So, do you know what this stands for? Do you know what it stands for, bro? Do you know what it stands for? No, you wouldn't know. You don't know. Do you know what it stands for? Do you know? Yeah. All cops are bastards, right? Right. So we can say it nicely. All cops are bad, but what it stands for is all cops are bastards. And this is the level at which the critique of police kind of takes this level. And what's good about the movement, the anti-police movement, most recently, is that police are being called to a certain level of accountability, and that's important, and it's got to be. And when you see the data, when you hear the stories after stories, right, it's important to have this accountability. But here's the danger, right? Go to the next one. This is from Trump's January 6th, right? The anti-police is not just black and brown people in the U.S. Everybody will turn against the police. The people who are on January 6th, who are fighting the police and beating the crap out of the police, are the very people who claim to stand for justice and law enforcement and uphold fairness and uphold the importance of people following rules and people all of this stuff. And they're the very people, when the moment comes, they turn against. And so that's why this conversation that we're having here about what's going on and what's actually happening is so important, because these are the very people who, like, in the end, everybody will turn against cops. All right, here's the next one. This guy, what I've learned in my experiences with police, whatever this gentleman here is saying, this is in the George Floyd protests in New York City, whatever the gentleman is saying in the bullhorn, unless he's saying, just saying all cops are bastards or whatever that is, right? You're all racist. But if he's talking about we need to reform, George Floyd's death was murder, these kinds of things, most of those cops probably they probably accept most of what he's saying. I've had just countless conversations with police about the murder of George Floyd. I have not met a single police officer, and I'm talking hundreds, who I've spoken with, who themselves know dozens of people. Each one, I've not met a single one who thought anything other than the fact that George Floyd's death was murder, and that guy should be sent away, and the other cops for watching and not doing something should face serious repercussions. But you don't know that. Look at the cops in that photo. You don't know that. They're standing there in their shields and in their helmets and all their protective gear, and they just look like these militia people who at any moment would just want to beat the crap out of that guy right there, take their baton. But in fact, if he's talking about George Floyd's death being a murder, every one of them is agreeing with him. They're playing a role. They can't do anything. Their job is to keep the peace, to keep people from being violent, to keep people from rioting, to keep people from whatever the case is, right? Protect the state, protect whatever it is. They can't come out of that role, but they probably agree with most everything that he is probably saying. And so we're stuck here in this world of not really understanding whose side are we on, and we create these enemies and we create the divisions, and we don't really have a sense of this, right? And that's really actually quite disturbing in my humble opinion. Okay, so let's look at this. Next one. I should have, actually, before I did this, I should have asked you. We have about 65 million police encounters in the United States every year, okay? 10 million arrests, 65 million police encounters. So when you have a bad experience with a cop, you have a bad experience, I do, you have a bad experience, there's 65 million encounters. There's a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong. 65 million, you all. This isn't like, I've been in a cop car with a cop and we drive down the street and somebody waves to the cop and then he sort of waves it. That's not an encounter. An encounter is an engagement with someone. 65 million of them in the United States. So you're going to have some that go wrong. You just will. That's the nature of it, right? And you want to minimize that. You want everyone to go right, but some are going to go wrong. And I don't think I really have a question for any of you. 65 minutes. Does that seem like a lot? Is that like? It's a lot, right? All these 65 million engagements. That's a lot of opportunities for every arrest. There's 10 million traffic stops. 10 million times the police officer goes to the back of the car and puts their hand there, whatever it is, right? It's so many. It's just so many opportunities for things to just be really troubling and go south. And then here, go to the next one. So police make mistakes, right? I'm going to go through this kind of quickly because I want to make sure we get to this other thing I want to go to. But police sometimes make mistakes. They make mistakes too often, in my opinion. But at the same time, when I talk to police, it's incredibly difficult. It's stressful. You're following rules. You're trained. There's so many things you got to do. You got to think about. You're making split-second decisions at every moment that there's so many opportunities for mistakes, and there's so many opportunities for things to go wrong. And the one thing that police told me, so they know what I do, and they know how I teach, and they know the kind of stuff that I talk about. And every single cop with whom I've ever had this conversation has said, listen, if there's any one single message that you should tell your students, let them know how incredibly stressful and difficult it is to every day to try to do the right thing. And people do the wrong thing, and there are cops who consistently, I've met cops who I just felt like, nah, you just don't understand the situation here. Cops who didn't understand race. They had certain opinions about certain people that I felt like, dude, that probably influences your policing. Probably not a lot, but nonetheless, I met cops who are just, appear to be like really just, I don't know, racist. And then they talk to other cops, and the other cops are like, nah, man, that person right there, they're like, dude, that person is like the fairest, kindest kind of, it's so complicated, right? So police make mistakes, and it's really, really difficult to do. Just like this is difficult to do, right? Like I'm trying to stand here and hold down all these things and talk and keep you interested and make sure that you stay engaged. And I'm talking to the cameras, and I don't know who's watching on the cameras and the whole thing. And like, it's not easy to do. Well, it's not easy to be a cop when at any moment things can go wrong and someone can lose their lives, like just happened in New York City last week. Okay, so I want to say two quick things, right? I'm going to walk you through some data now. First off, are we good? Are you? Okay, go to this slide. This is a video we used to use in class. And this guy, he's a police activist, a community activist, really checking the police. And the police took him on a training course to, like, what would you do in this situation? They gave him a gun, and they said, here's the training we go through, and you got to split, you're going to have a split second to make a decision. You're going to question some guy, and then the person's going to react in a certain way. You got a split second to make your decision about that person. And you're going to see how well you do that, because when things go south, they go south really fast. And this guy, so he's African American. He left the training completely discombobulated, and he talks about it in the video. I used to use it in this class. It's just like him stepping into somebody else's shoes in a way that just blew his mind and radically transformed his way of thinking. Just like people, if you go to the next slide, people who say, oh, the police don't act unviolently or unethically very often. Well, that's because you're not in the right neighborhoods. Maybe not in your neighborhood. Maybe not where you live, right? Maybe it's fine where you are. Maybe you're not driving around with the right friends, right? Why don't you drive around with a couple dark-skinned young men and find out, you say, I never get pulled over by the police. Really? Okay, well, here you go. Go with couple of your dark-skinned friends, if you have any. If not, make some. Drive around with them and see how often you get pulled over by the police. See how the police treat you in the car when they're the ones driving versus how they treat you in the car when Gianna or Jesse are the ones driving. Like, do that. And when you do that, then you can come back and have a conversation about how often this stuff occurs. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through some data here, all right? Because one of the things that the activism on police is about death, police killing black and brown people. And I want to show you some data on this and what it is. So first off, lifetime risk of being killed by the police for African American men. That's this. Women is red. It's close to 100 per 100,000 people being killed by the police. Doesn't say whether you're armed or unarmed. Doesn't. For white people, it's about 40 per 100,000 people. Okay, so that's a huge difference. Here we got American Indians, Latinos, Asian. That's a big difference. And so when black people are talking about the need to reform policing, black people are looking at those kinds of numbers and saying, that's just unfair. And so they would go to somebody like your father and say, what? Explain that. Explain that. What is that, right? Or they would go to the two of you when you're police and say, explain that. That shouldn't happen, okay? And let me show you, okay, next slide. So how many people have been killed by the police since 2015? What do you think? Go ahead, just take a guess. 2015 up until the beginning of 2021. Go ahead, take a guess. How many people? You got to get a number out there. Take a while. Come up with a number in your head and don't change it. Everyone come up with a number. How many people have been killed by the police? Okay? Come up with, you got a number?
I'm gonna say
You're not even going to be close. So.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not gonna be close, but I'm gonna say somewhere around 5,000.
Okay, 5,000. Yep, Jesse.
I'd say somewhere near that, in the thousands.
Okay.
I would say maybe like 3,500, 4,000.
3,500 or 4,000? Okay. Everyone, you have a number? This is what we're talking about here, right? This is what all of this unrest and the conversations about police and reforming the police and it's all about this. Next one. So 6,600, okay? 6,600, which is, it's a lot and it's not very many at the same time. Every death is a tragedy, okay? So now, what percentage, what number, how many of those people were white? No, how many of those people were black? Go ahead, take a guess. Do you have a number? More than half. What do you think?
I was gonna say like 45.
100?
Like 45%.
45%, okay.
I'm gonna say like 60.
60%?
Yeah.
I'm going to say even 50%.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so go to the next slide. So 23% were black, 44% white. These are the numbers in the population right here. 60% of the U.S. during these years are white, 12.2% black, 18% Hispanic, and so on. Right? So these are the numbers, right? Mostly, we only talk about black people being killed, mostly because it's black people are the ones that have been really speaking up. This idea I had about paramilitary policing, I've been talking about this for 35 years. Black people around me have been talking about this for 150 years. It's a conversation in the black community and the paramilitary policing. White people don't even see it. White people are just like, poor white people talk about it, but white people in the middle class and upper middle class and so on, they don't really see it. So there's a way in which the black community in the United States have been like, there's an old saying about canaries in the coal mine, because they would put canaries and they'd take canaries down in the coal mines, and if there was any carbon monoxide, then the canary would die. And so you would know that, right? So black people have been raising the alarm for some of this, like your mom. And other people aren't really talking about it, but but we're not talking about white people being killed by the police. So we're not just mostly because white people aren't thinking about it. Black people talk about white people being killed by the police. Black people, by the way, just so you know this, because most of you are probably not paying attention, but I pay attention. When I listen to Black Lives Matter activists, they'll talk about black people, but they're always talking about white people, Latino people, and Asian and Native American people also being, hurt by the police. But white people often have this idea that, black people only talk about black people. It's not true. The activists who I know are looking out for everybody. But not even who I know. I'm listening. I'm paying attention. So this is something that has a certain value. Okay, let's go to the next one. Don't do the next one. No, go back. Did you all see that? You saw that, right? how many of the people who were killed by the police are unarmed? 6,632. How many were unarmed? Unarmed. Bro, what do you think? Go ahead, what do you think?
So I'm dyslexic, so I didn't even see it.
Okay,
All I
good.
saw was a bunch of like,
All right.
I'm gonna say, looking at the numbers, maybe around 120, 150.
120, 150.
Yeah, you
Okay.
said unarmed, right?
Unarmed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead. Jesse, what about you?
300.
Yep. You said 2. What do you say?
I was gonna say like 6, somewhere between 6 to 800.
So 6 to 800. So you said 100. That seems really low. So how do you come to that?
Well, if you asked me that question before class, I probably would have said something higher, but like looking at it and seeing the actual numbers, 6,632 people total since 2015, and majority of that is white people.
Yeah.
So it kind of that changed my perception on what the numbers in my head might have what I already had.
So
So
what-
now
what-
I'm
what-
thinking
but-
maybe around that.
Okay, but let me ask you a question, right? I'll ask the two of you. So in the conversation that we have, that Black Lives Matter movement has brought to the public attention, which is really important. It's a movement that bring our attention to these issues, right? But if we're talking about over the course of 5 years, 6 years, we're talking about, he's saying he estimated 100 unarmed people were killed by the police. How do we have a whole movement about 100 people? You know what I mean? Do you just want to, do you have anything to say about that? Like, because what that means is everyone who's not unarmed is armed. Everyone who's armed then could kill your father in a moment, could kill when the two of you, if you become police, because your traffic records are so terrible, right? But you may not be. But if you do, that means that like people have weapons, and you know what I mean? So we hear about police killings, but what you're saying is, yeah, but 100 of them are armed, but 6,500 are not, and that means they're potentially going to kill somebody. So what are we talking about here? So do you have any thoughts about like the implications of this? Like, if so many people are armed and unarmed, why are we having this conversation? Like, what is it? Do any questions come up?
Well, I don't know if it's, I'm just saying, police are only to draw their gun if there's another weapon that they see. But I mean, unarmed, it could be someone who's high on drugs or wrongful pullover who they think has a weapon but they don't. Traffic, like real reckless driving.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but the question is, we're having this really, in some ways, one of the most fractious movements in the United States about policing, and people really putting this out on the table. And what we're talking about is that police are murderers, right? Police are killing communities. Police are violent killers. Police are all the negative stuff to police. And if police, there's a lot going on here that's like, wait, hang on a second. Like, what are we talking about? And if we don't expand the conversation into these areas, then we're really missing what needs to be discussed. Okay?
So, with my original low number of unarmed, what I meant by that was like society. I feel like that amount of people being armed in a way of, if you're a police officer coming
Yeah.
into my house, right? What if I'm cutting a sandwich and I have a knife in my hands, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
a brand
yeah.
new rookie cop, you
Listen.
get scared.
Yeah.
That I wasn't threatening you or anything, but
Yep.
in the report it's going to say I was armed with a knife and you felt threatened.
Yep.
So there's things like that.
Some
And I'm-
things like there are some
Exactly.
stories
Yeah,
like
not
that,
a lot, but
most of the 6632 are
Yeah.
not that.
I'm also saying that small number is how you were like kind of saying, why is there a whole movement about this? Why is it such a big focus? I think it's because when you see the numbers and you see this many people had guns, this many people
Yep.
had a weapon, anything that was some
Yeah.
kind of threat,
Yep.
everybody kind of understands.
Yep.
They don't really need the context. They get there was something, like something threatening them.
Yep.
And then unarmed, 422. Still, that's 422 people
Dude,
that weren't threatening or
every-
may have
every
been threatening,
life-
but with no weapon,
Look,
no
one of the
means of
consistent things
harm.
that look, everyone is a first off, everyone is a tragedy, right?
yeah.
And everyone who is not armed is absolutely a tragedy.
Yeah.
And I've had many conversations with many different kinds of police. Hey, wait, hang on one second. We still have, how much time do we have? We have 4 minutes? Yeah, we have 4 minutes. Okay, that everyone's a tragedy, right?
Yeah,
That no
course.
life, it's horrible.
Mhm.
We would expect to see, we have so many guns in our society, people killing each other, people being stupid, people who have guns who shouldn't have guns. Like, how do you, it's just disturbing
Yeah.
at multiple levels,
But
okay?
I think it's that separation in society where if anybody in this room heard of one person getting shot by a police officer and they had a gun,
Yeah.
everybody's going to be like, okay, maybe the cop felt threatened. But the second I
Dude.
say he dropped a gun and he didn't have any more, I guarantee everybody in this room would say why'd he shoot him then?
Yeah, exactly.
Questioning that.
Exactly. So, yep. Can you go to the next slide? So here, for the unarmed people, these are the numbers. And, and I think if we don't take this is really, for me, it's a very, I'm going to speak right into green for a second. It's a really troubling issue for me because we need to have this conversation about guns and weapons and policing and inequality. And if we don't find a way to do it and bring everybody in, but what we've done is we've created this as a situation where it's just black people who are raising issues that it seems like other people aren't raising. And in fact, this is a disturbing issue for everybody. But unless everybody really figures a way to get onto it and talk about it in some way, then I don't know, we're not going to move anywhere. But by the way, this right here today, this is critical race theory. So when you hear about, we're teaching critical race theory to our kids, this is critical race theory. This is an attempt to look at race and policing and all sorts of things and to try to have some way of comprehending and understanding, okay? First off, wait, hang on one second. Can we have applause for our...